Journeys of Return and Redemption. Haggai chapter 1, The Purse of Broken Holes. The warm studio lights illuminate the round table as the panel members settle into their seats with open copies of the text. A focused, high-energy atmosphere fills the space as the recorders line up for the session. "Welcome back to the table, everyone," Alex Rivera says, leaning toward his microphone with a welcoming smile. In our last episode, we mapped out the broad historical canvas of the post-exilic era, but today we are launching a deep dive straight into the engine room of Haggai chapter 1. We're looking at a community that successfully made the physical journey home from Babylon, yet 16 years later, their spiritual restoration has completely stalled out. Dr. Naomi, help us see the landscape when Haggai steps onto the scene in 520 BC, because on the surface, the people seem to have a highly sophisticated theological excuse for why the work stopped. Dr. Naomi shifts her notes, looking across the table. They aren't just making things up, Alex. When the people look at the ruins of Jerusalem and say the time has not yet come for the Lord's house to be built, they are actually weaponizing biblical math. They knew Jeremiah prophesied a 70-year desolation, and since Nebuchadnezzar smashed the temple walls in 586 BC, their current calendar year of 520 BC means they are still 4 years shy of that liturgical milestone. It's a brilliant defense mechanism. They look at the political red tape from their neighbors, look at the calendar, and conclude that since the 70-year mark of destruction hasn't fully hit, God must not want them moving forward yet. Rabbi Jonah shakes his head, adjusting his glasses. It's a classic trap, Naomi. They substituted an academic debate over prophetic timelines for immediate covenant loyalty. They weren't suffering from chronological confusion. They were enjoying a strategic, self-serving apathy. They used the unfinished calendar to build a theological firewall around their own comfort. Thomas leans forward, his pen tapping on the table as his focus shifts to the engineering and logistics of the colony. And that's exactly where the prophet strips away the smokescreen. Because while the temple stays a skeletal, charred ruin, a cherub, the residential zones tell a completely different story. Haggai looks at them and asks, "Is it a time for you yourselves to dwell in your paneled houses?" The Hebrew word there is sapion, meaning high-end interior wood lining. These people weren't just surviving in tents or rough shelters. They had the time, the energy, and the premium harvested timber to craft beautiful, finished private estates while leaving the house of God completely abandoned. They found the resources for their own master bedrooms, but claimed a calendar mystery kept them from building the communal heart of the city. It's heartbreaking because you can see the immediate toll that division took on their everyday lives, Sophia says, her voice softening with empathy. They are running on a hamster wheel of pure exhaustion. Haggai gives them this vivid diagnostic. He says they sow much but harvest little. They eat but never feel full. They put on clothes but can't stay warm. They are working themselves to the bone, yet they feel this deep, persistent lack of satisfaction. Father Elias nods, his eyes lighting up. Exactly, Sophia. They are living out the microeconomic reality of a life misaligned. They earn wages only to put them into a purse filled with structural holes because the heavens have locked down their dew and the earth is withholding its crops. God called a targeted drought across their fields, their cattle, and their labor to get their attention. He wasn't punishing them out of malice. He was trying to wake them up to the fact that you cannot harvest a blessing when you are actively neglecting the source of life. Thomas sits back, a knowing grin breaking across his face. But the beautiful part of chapter 1 is how fast that waking up actually happens once they drop the excuses. When Zerubbabel and Joshua hear the message, they don't call a committee to debate the math anymore. On the 24th day of that exact same month, the text says the Lord stirred up the internal spirit of the leadership and the entire remaining remnant. They picked up their tools, walked up into the mountains to cut the timber, and physically went to work. Sophia smiles warmly, leaning over the table. That psychological shift changes everything. The moment they take that first step of obedience into the dirt, before a single stone is permanently set, God meets them right there in the ruins with a spectacular, simple promise. I am with you. That's the turning point for any story of restoration. Alex Rivera looks across the table at each speaker, his voice carrying a resonant warmth that bridges the ancient Persian text to the immediate reality of their discussion. It shows us that the road of return is never just about changing our geographic location. It's about a radical realignment of our priorities, because redemption doesn't wait for us to find the perfect circumstances or a flawless historical timeline. It begins the moment we dismantle our most sophisticated excuses, step into the ruins of our misplaced choices, and prioritize the presence of God over our own self-preservation. I'm Alex Rivera, and this has been Journeys of Return and Redemption.